it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Hey folks, so here's my review of Avengers Endgame, the 75th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which technically is not the end of Phase 4, according to, I think Kevin Feige said that, or someone at Marvel said that. I read it before, is that the new Spider-Man, Far From Home, is actually the end of Phase 4, which seems a little bit odd, considering that Spider-Man cannot be as epic and as grand scale as Avengers Endgame is. It's just impossible that that's gonna be like that. So I don't know why they decided to make Spider-Man the final movie in this phase, considering that the first Avengers ended Phase 1 and then the weekend of Ultron, well, the Age of Ultron, but really the Age of Ultron lasted like, what, 10 minutes? So it was more like the smoke break of Ultron, you know, that ended Phase 2, and then this really grand spectacle of a movie should be the end of Phase 3, but whatever, I'm not in Hollywood, I'm not controlling any of this stuff. So a little bit of disclaimer first off. After I saw the first 4 or 5 movies that made up the first phase of this MCU thing, I lost interest in Marvel movies because I caught on to their formula of, you know, bad guys going after the thing, good guys want to go after the bad guy, and the bad guy is essentially a villainous version of the good guy. You know, I think the only movies that didn't have that kind of formula was really Winter Soldier, also directed by the Russo brothers, which is my favorite Marvel movie of all of them, of all 972 of them. And the first Iron Man, which kind of had that with that Ulysses guy. What's his name, Ulysses? Whoever the bad guy was in the first Iron Man movie. We had that knockoff, you know, Kmart brand Iron Man suit that froze up in the atmosphere. But every other movie had the same thing. Black Panther had an evil Black Panther, and then Ant-Man had an evil version of Ant-Man. And I just caught on to that kind of formula, and it became too cheesy. I just couldn't watch it anymore. Plus, all the heroes, of course, again, with the exception of Winter Soldier, and maybe Black Panther. Yeah, maybe Black Panther. But all the heroes in the other movies had to have a bunch of witty comments that they would just spew out with just anything, you know? It would just seriously undercut a lot of the drama that was supposed to be happening in those movies. So once I caught on to that formula, I lost interest in them, and I kind of just watched them to pass the time. I wasn't really interested in where the story ended. But now that I did watch this one, I am glad that I was a little bit familiar with the other movies. You don't have to watch all of the other movies in order to watch this. It's not necessary. Oh, and in case I didn't put that on the title card or in the thumbnail, this is a spoiler review for the movie. I'm not gonna do a non-spoiler and a spoiler movie. I don't have the time for that. So I think the movies that are essential to watch before Endgame is obviously Infinity War from last year, and maybe Doctor Strange, and the second Ant-Man movie, which I didn't watch, and Winter Soldier, and Iron Man, Iron Man Part 1, and maybe Part 3. And I'll say why these movies are kind of important later on. Those are and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok. So those 5 or 6 movies are really important to this Endgame movie. And that's mainly because at the end of Infinity War, of course, you know, Thanos did the snap, and then half the universe turned to ash. And this movie starts out with Clint Barton. Is that his name? Hawkeye. He's on his farm from the smoke break of Ultron, and he's hanging out with his family, teaching his young girl how to shoot an arrow, and his wife and his 2 sons are throwing the ball or making lunch or some garbage. And so he turns around for a second to talk to his wife, and his daughter disappears, and he's looking for her, and then he turns back around to his wife, and they're gone. He's like, what's going on? So obviously at that point is when the snap happened. So that's where the movie starts, and then it goes up into space, and you see Tony Stark. This is from the trailer, and you see Tony Stark talking into his helmet, making a recording to Pepper Potts. And what they don't show in the trailer is that Nebula is actually on the ship with him, so he's not all alone. And he goes through a little bit of a narration where he's like talking about how he's surviving, and Nebula, you can see Nebula's changed from how she was in the first Guardians movie. Is that what she? Yeah, I think that's where she debuted. And you can see how she's changed. She's less a machine and more of a human in this movie. Older Nebula is a bit more, and that kind of plays out later on also. So anyway, Tony's making a message to Pepper Potts, and he kind of knocks out. He's like, oh, I've got about a day of oxygen left to go. And as he's falling asleep, you know, Nebula comes into his little area, and she, I don't know, puts a blanket on him or something. something. And then he opens his eyes, you know, there's bright flash of light, and Captain Marvel is there. And I didn't include her in the list of the other ones that you have to watch because she's not really in the movie that much. So, I mean, not really necessary. And so Captain Marvel shows up, and she does her Superman thing, carries the ship back to Earth, and Tony and Nebula arrive, and they greet everybody that's still left. And in the interim of this, Captain America, Black Widow, Bruce Banner, what's her name, Michonne from Walking Dead, I don't know what her name was in Black Panther, and one other person, they're still running around trying to do Avengers stuff. Black Widow, they're still running around trying to do Avengers stuff around the world, trying to keep some kind of an order. And the other person that they're keeping track of is Hawkeye. He's going around to different countries, and he's kind of doing Oliver Queen from Arrow, from the first 2 or 3 seasons of Arrow, where he's kind of just going down to Mexico, and he's like, hey, Mexican drug cartel, you have failed this city. And he's just killing people left and right. And Black Widow's kind of having a hard time, like, I don't know, he's not supposed to be doing that, but I don't know, it's kind of terrible, but you know, what do we do? You know, there's hardly anyone around. So my question at that point was like, he's just going off to Japan and Mexico and all these places. I guess air travel wasn't really affected by the snap, and planes are just coming and going as normal. I don't know, whatever. But Captain America is holding kind of like recovery meetings, group meetings with folks that are just telling them, you know, just keep moving on, pressing forward with your life. You know, Captain America is the eternal optimist in this whole movie. And so when Tony Stark returned, and that whole dynamic from Civil War and before Civil War actually kind of rears its ugly head again, where Tony Stark is like, well, when I needed your help, you weren't there, where were you? And they kind of butt heads again. And so he recovers. Tony gets put into bed rest. He recovers eventually, and then they're still looking for Thanos. The other folks are still looking for Thanos across the universe. And Captain Marvel's like, yeah, I know where to find them. I'll just go around, flying around, whatever. And that's when Nebula begins her integral part in the story, is where she's like, yeah, I know how to find them. And they find Thanos. Well, actually, they don't find Thanos. They find the power ring that expanded out of the Earth when he did the snap, but they find the same thing happen on another planet, and Nebula is able to find that planet with her galaxy map, you know. So they go to that planet, and this is where Thanos' scarecrow of armor was in one of the trailers, and he's just sitting there, you know, he's just there farming and like an old man, and it's like, what the hell? And this is all within the first 30 minutes of the movie, right? All of this is like, so they get into a bit of a tiff. Thanos tells them, hey, I don't have the stones anymore. I used the stones to destroy the stones, and that's why my face and my arms are all screwed up. And he's crazy weak at this point, right? He's nowhere near as strong as he was in Infinity War, even without the stones. He was a very formidable guy. So, but on this farm now, and this is after 5 years have passed, he is like super weak, and a couple of the Avengers, I think, Bruce Banner uses the Hulkbuster to go there. And one thing again with this movie, Earthlings go to other planets and are just able to breathe on these planets just because. There's no little exposition from a computer saying, okay, oxygen rich, or you can breathe without a spacesuit. No, they just show up, no mask, no helmet, no nothing, and they're just walking around. Nebulon 4, Zyrax 3. Just okay. Okay, fine, let's move past that. So they're talking to Thanos, and he tells them everything about the stones, and they beat him up a little bit. And while they try to question him, so they don't believe him, obviously, so they try to question him as to where he actually put the stones. But before he's able to repeat himself again, you know, Nebula's like, well, I know my father's a lot of things, but he's not a liar. And so as he's kind of like saying, you know, I am inevitable, thanks Nebula, and that's a line, he's like, I mean, I am inevitable, there's no way to stop what I've done, it's destined to happen, basically. You know, that's when Thor, he's like, eh. And then off goes Thanos' head, and everyone's shocked by it, except apparently Thor. And they're like asking him, like, what are you doing? And he's like, I went for the head. Which, I don't know if that line was in the movie or if that's what a lot of fans were saying after Infinity War, because Thor went for the heart in the movie, where he went for the chest at Thanos with Stormbreaker. So I don't know if that's what that was, if it was like some weird callback to the movie, or if it was the fan comments that did that. But that's what he did, chopped off Thanos' head, and then they leave, and you're like, 40 minutes in, what's the rest of the, you know, 2 hours and 13 minutes supposed to be like? And so that's where the movie kind of slows down quite a bit, because there's just a lot of lamenting going on, and people are blaming themselves for this, and all the heroes are going through basically the 12 steps of grief. You know, Tony's in denial. Tony is angry. Captain America's kind of accepted it. Black Widow is going through a lot of guilt. The Hulk is kind of in denial because he's made himself into Professor Hulk, which is a character from the comics. He used to, I forget which one, I don't know if it was Joe Fixit, but I think that was a Gray Hulk. In any case, there was a point where Bruce Banner was able to make himself control of the Hulk. He still had the big Hulk body, he still had the strength of the Hulk, but he was able to control, still had the mind of Bruce Banner, so he wasn't a total out of rage. He wasn't a total out of control rage monster, just banging up everything. So that version of the Hulk is in the movie throughout, and so he's kind of in denial. He's like, oh, you know, everything's okay, I guess, you know, but whatever. So the rest of that middle part kind of deals with them dealing with that, and it slows down quite a bit because of, I guess, it's character building, really. Everyone's kind of going over what they might have done differently or where they're going to go from there. And so it isn't until Ant-Man shows up out of the quantum realm from, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where he kind of comes out and the whole world's changed, and he's looking around and he finds this monument where all the names of the people that went missing are labeled like on a war memorial, and he sees his name on there, but he doesn't see his wife's name or his daughter's name, I forget which. And so he runs to his house and his daughter is there. I guess it must have been his wife he's looking for. So his daughter is still alive, and so they have a nice little reunion, and then he has a great idea. Hey, since only, I forget what he said, 5 days had passed in the quantum realm, but it had been 5 years in the world itself. He's like, hey, what if we can use this quantum deal to kind of time travel at a certain point, and then retrieve the stones, and then before Thanos can even collect them. And so that's what a lot of the theories were online were like, yeah, they're definitely going to use Ant-Man's quantum realm thing in order to travel back in time. It was either going to be that or Doctor Strange's amulet, but obviously with Marvel storytelling being kind of so predictable up until a couple movies, really, it's they foreshadow a lot very, very clumsily, I think. So a lot of people saw, oh yeah, there's a lot of attention being focused on this quantum realm thing and time travel in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, and it's the movie right before this one, so I don't know. It's probably gonna be used again. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Quantum realm, Ant-Man and the Wasp. might be important. Time travel, I don't know. So Ant-Man goes to the team of Captain America and everyone else, and he's like, yeah, I've got this idea for this thing. And they of course go to Tony, him being the smartest, I guess, physicist, engineering guy that they know, and he tells them, nope, not interested, it's not possible, he can't time travel. And at that point, it's mainly because he's got his own family now with Pepper Potts. Like I said, 5 years had passed since he came back and everything happened with the snap. So he's got something to lose now, because really before, his whole story arc, mainly in the Marvel MCU, was mainly about himself. You know, I'm the greatest, I'm the smartest, I'm this and I'm that, I'm Iron Man, no one's really above me, I'm kind of the brightest star in the room. And so now he's got a daughter that he really cares about, and of course Pepper is by his side as his woman, as his wife. And so he's kind of like, nah, this is a bad idea, it's not gonna work out, you guys are living a pipe dream. And so of course he still has this beef with Captain America, so it's like, I don't even really want to help you, so there's no way I'm gonna put myself and my family in danger for nothing, not for you, not gonna happen. So that doesn't go so well with them, so they go back to Bruce Banner, they go back to Dr. Hulk, they go back to Professor Hulk, and he's like, well, you know, time travel's not really my, it's not really my niche, but hey, you know, give it a shot. So they build up this little science machine, and they're able to send Ant-Man through time, but time goes through him. He doesn't go through time. And they display this in the movie with Scott Lang's age changing, where he goes in as a normal age, then he goes back out and he's like super old, and he goes back in and he's a baby, and he comes back out and he's back to his normal age. So they're like, well, it's kind of a success, he's not dead, you know. So that was kind of a good part of the movie. So they go through that, and then in the meantime, this is where you see Hawkeye running around, you know, killing people. And and Tony's also like, the idea's been put into his head now, like Inception style. He's like, well, maybe time travel is possible if I just do this with a Mobius ring and blah, 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 more science, gobbledygook talking. And so he's able to do it, he's able to solve it. And he's like asking Pepper's counsel. He's like, should I do it? You know, and she basically tells him, you know, whenever I've tried to stop you, it's never worked. So why try to stop yourself? If you want to do it, you know you're gonna want to do it. So go ahead and do it. So Tony comes to his senses, and he teams up with the rest of the Avengers, and he builds his machine, and that's where they all get the weird space suits from. It helps them miniaturize and flow through the quantum tunnel, time, whatever. And so when they're explaining this part, it's Bruce is like, well, we can't just go back in time and steal the 6 stones and then change the past that way, because we're living in the present. So by us going into the past, it's still our future. So the past that we came from won't change, it'll just create another timeline. And this is something that was explored in Back to the Future Part 2, and other stories, of course, you know, with X-Men Days of Future Past. The comics had that kind of a thing, or the Days of Future Present had that. In any case, it's nothing new, it's just another way of explaining how they can't change the past, they gotta change certain elements, but then return those elements to their time frames. And timey-wimey stuff, it gets really, it breaks down very, very fast if it's not written correctly. Very, very, very fast. I think the only show that I've seen it done very well was Sci-Fi 12 Monkeys, based off of that movie with Bruce Willis. That show was the only one that did time travel in such a great way that it made sense as you followed. It was incredibly convoluted, but if you broke it down, everything made sense throughout the whole 4 seasons of that show. So anyway, Avengers say, you can't change the past, let's just make another timeline, whatever. So they go back in time, and this is where the Russo brothers take 10 years of Avengers stuff and they cram it into this 2 hours and 53-minute movie. And it's done very well, because they go back to the Battle of New York in 2012, and so they split up into certain teams in certain eras, and each era that they go to, I shouldn't say era, each year that they go to is the year that one of them was made aware of the Infinity Stone. So they go back to Thor 2, the worst movie of them all, to pick up the red stone, and that's the same movie where Thor's mother died. So speaking of Thor, after when they went to recruit everyone to do this space mission thing, they went after Hawkeye. They found him in Japan, and he's like, yeah, I'm in, you know, I got nothing else to live for, my family's all dead. And then they go back to New Asgard, which, like in the comics, is just a place on Earth now with all the remaining Asgardians. And Thor has kind of let himself go in that he's gotten a beer keg for a belly, and he's roomies with the Rock guy and some other guy from Thor Ragnarok. And so he's not really interested in being a leader. But who is it that Rocket Raccoon, I believe, tells him there's beer on the ship, and that's kind of what motivates him to go join them. Beer. Okay. Who else was there? So they had Thor, Bruce, Tony, Captain, Black Widow, Hawkeye. Yeah, I think it was those Rocket. Yeah, those 7, and they went to build. It went about 2 to each stone, so about 2 people to each stone. And so, in the 2012 year, Captain America, Iron Man, and Hawkeye. No, whoever. Who was that? Captain America, Iron Man. And it was a third person with them, because Thor went with Rocket, Black Widow went, oh yeah, War Machine. Black Widow went with War Machine. No, Nebula went with War Machine to, not Boromir. Anyway, the thing is, they all split up and went to different places to collect the stones at different times. That's all there is to it. So they each ran into their own little problems along the way. They each see the past versions of the people that they love that are no longer with them. Captain America sees Peggy still alive, Agent Carter. Thor still sees his mom alive, actually talks to her. Who else? Hawkeye sees his family alive when he goes back for the test run before they all leave for the mission together. I think that's really about it that I remember. So they all kind of run into their past loved ones, and it gives them more motivation to go forward. So once they run into their little problems in getting the stones, eventually they do get the stones all together. But Nebula is actually captured in the Guardians of the Galaxy. I forget which stone they got in the Guardians of the Galaxy, but in that same room where Star-Lord was captured by the Nova Corps, is it in that same room or that same planet is where old Nebula and old Gamora are up in space looking for the stone. And the Russo brothers did a really good job of this, where they had 2 Nebulas in the same time period sharing the same network, the same like neural network, a la like Data from Star Trek. So they're both sharing the same neural network. So old Nebula is seeing the memories that new Nebula recorded, and Thanos and Gamora see them, and they're like, what the hell is this? So they're all reading new Nebula's memories, and Thanos sees how the future turns out for him. So then he's like, well, replace old Nebula with new Nebula. And so new Nebula gets captured. Old Nebula goes back into the past. Oh man. Old Nebula goes to the future. Yeah, old Nebula goes into the future playing as new Nebula. And Thanos is able to find out exactly where the 6 stones have been gathered, which happens to be onto a new Iron Man glove that Tony Stark put together. And this looks pretty cool. So once they get all the gems together in Tony's new gauntlet, they're all congratulating themselves, kind of like, yay, we did it. All right, guys, good going, great job. Meanwhile, in another part of the building where their little quantum doohickey machine is, old Nebula is there, and she's, she figures out the commands and how to make everything work. I don't know, because she's a robot, I guess. But she figures out how to make everything work, and she gets Thanos from the past to travel through into the future, or the present, and then he launches up through the roof, and he blows the whole building to shreds, right? So now we've got a bunch of them, a bunch of those guys are buried. Hawkeye is the one down in the sub-basement, and that's where the glove lands next to him. So he picks it up and he starts running around because some of Thanos' creatures are down there suddenly, okay? And so he's running around through the sewers like a Ninja Turtle. And so above ground, Thanos is kind of like waiting outside, just kind of chilling, just sitting and waiting, which is like, you see someone like that, as large as he is, as calm as he is, Josh Brolin really conveys how much of a threat that Thanos is just by himself, with no army, no Black Order around him, no one doing his work for him. He is just a villain like none other in the Marvel universe at all. He's above all of them. And so he's sitting there waiting, just calmly too. He's not like looking around. He's just like, yep. Just gonna wait for these guys to show up so I can handle my business, you know? He is like, he's confident in his abilities, basically. So once Tony, Captain America, and Thor kind of figure out what happened, they go outside, you know, and they see him sitting there, and they're like, okay, round two. We can't take this guy lightly like before. And so, you know, Thor's like, I'm gonna do what I should have done the first time, again. And so they go to fight him, and clearly he overpowers them all easily. He doesn't need the gauntlet. He doesn't need all 6 stones for anything other than the extra powerful, you know, universe bending, reality creating powers that the things have. So he goes on a tear through them, easily puts down Iron Man, of course. The people that give him the biggest challenge are Thor, obviously, with Stormbreaker. And I think I forgot to mention that Thor now has Mjolnir again, because when he went back in time to see his mom in that awful Thor 2 plot line, he actually called back Mjolnir to see if he was still worthy, because like I said, he had given up on himself. He got that beer belly. He was kind of like a slouch, slothing around. And so he was still worthy. He proved that to himself by getting Mjolnir back from the past. So how does that Thor, I don't know how that works out, how that Thor from that time deals with the Mjolnir from his time being taken out of his timeline and brought to the future. But anyway, okay, we skip all that timey-wimey stuff like I said before. Okay, so so present day Thor now has Stormbreaker and Mjolnir from the past. And so he puts up a good fight against Thanos. Captain America does what he can with his kicks and his punches and stuff. Although he's superhuman, but still not on the level of Thor, of course. So at some point, Thor loses Mjolnir, and he still is working with Stormbreaker, and he's not able to do much with Thanos against that. And so with Thanos, so he's not able to do much with Thanos through using Stormbreaker, and he loses Stormbreaker to Thanos somehow, and Thanos ends up having Thor pinned on some rocks or whatever, and he's going for Thor's chest like Thor did with Thanos in Infinity War. And that's when you see the hammer rises up and it hits Thanos in the back of the head. And I was like, at that point, like, what the hell is Thor? Did Thor call him? That's my initial thought was, okay, maybe Thor used his other hand or whatever to call Mjolnir to him, and you know, did some. But nope. The hammer hit Thanos, and when it's going back, you see Captain America catches it like a boss. And it's at that point that I was like, okay, movie, you got me. I'm all in. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold, because I was sold with Winter Soldier. It kind of renewed my faith in Marvel's level of storytelling and capabilities of storytelling. And then it quickly went down after Thor 2, but but in any case, Russo brothers did a great job with Winter Soldier, and then I kind of was like, okay, Civil War was okay, I guess too. They did Civil War also, and then I was like, okay, I'm great with Winter Soldier. It became my favorite Marvel movie, and then Civil War was all right. It was okay, I guess, and then Infinity War. I don't know about Infinity War. That was mostly just like a chase movie, you know, where everyone's running away, or it was like a movie, a keep away. The whole movie was like keep away. And that's about it. Keep away, and then action scene, keep away, talk, action scene, keep away, and then the movie's over. Everyone dies. or 50% of the people die. So I didn't really care much for Infinity War. But when I saw Captain America get Thor's hammer in this one, I was like, yo, okay, let's pay attention now, you know. And so that whole sequence was really well done. You know, Steve Rogers was using his shield and the hammer as combos, and he's like really pushing Thanos back. And he has his whole moment to shine there, because Tony's knocked out, Thor's kind of beaten. He's not doing much of anything at that point. And so everything is on Steve Rogers' shoulders at that point. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But of course, he's only human, so his body can only take so much punishment, especially from someone like Thanos. So he's eventually put down, but he stands back up because, of course, he's Captain America. And so just as he's putting out his best Jon Snow impersonation, you know, it's just Captain America, and then Thanos had already called down his hordes. You know, his Black Order came back down from the past, obviously, and then, you know, his minions and those little flying caterpillar things from the first Avengers movie were descending onto the Earth. And so Captain America's there, you know, he's like doing this. He was like Jon Snow at the Battle of the Bastards, you know. So, but just as I was thinking, like, how's he gonna get out of this? Who's gonna just come out of nowhere? You know, he gets a little message in his intercom in his ear. It's like, on your left, and Doctor Strange's portals open up, and out comes T'Challa, Michonne, and T'Challa's sister. And then Doctor Strange pops out, Falcon comes through, Spider-Man shoots in, and then everyone just starts coming through these portals that were opening up everywhere. And at that point I was like, well, this is just like the comics, the Avengers World comics, where it's like basically all the Avengers on the planet. It wasn't as literal as in the movie, but it made me think of Avengers World, the comic. So, and there was a couple other references in the movie too, where I was like, as soon as I noticed it, I was like, wow, that's a great comic callback. For instance, the scene with Captain America in Winter Soldier, before he's aware that Hydra's taken over S.H.I.E.L.D., he's in the elevator, and, you know, they say some words, and he ends up fighting against all these Hydra agents in the elevator before he takes down S.H.I.E.L.D. And so in this movie, they do the same thing, where he's trying to take back the Tesseract. Was it Tesseract? I think it was a Tesseract. He's trying to take back the Tesseract. No, Tony had the Tesseract. What the hell? I forget what Captain America had. He had one of those stones. Anyway, he's trying to take this stone back. It was a Tesseract. He's trying to take this Tesseract back from these agents, and he tells them, you know, the director wants me to carry the case. And the one guy with the glasses, I forget his name, he's like, are you sure the director said that? And then he leans over to the terrorist from Civil War, the face, Bones something. And he whispers to him, you know, Hail Hydra. And at that point I was like, wow, that's just like the comic that Ta-Nehisi Coates recently wrote within like a year or two ago, where it was Captain America, agent of Hydra, and where that's one of the things that Captain America says at the end of that first issue or second issue of the comic, where he's like revealed to be an agent of Hydra. He hasn't been Captain America. It was a whole thing with like, was it the Tesseract? No, it was the whole thing where the one of those stones the Phoenix Force uses all the time. But in any case, the Red Skull changed Captain America's history so that he was always an agent of Hydra. He wasn't actually the real Captain America. But then in this thing that changed Captain America's history, the real Captain America's essence was still alive. You know, comics, they just go off the wall sometimes. But that was a cool callback to the comics when he said that in the elevator. And so then when I saw the Avengers World, the kind of reference with all the heroes coming out, and of course when they all gathered together, you know, Captain America, of course, is like, Avengers assemble. And then I was like, well, you got me again, movie. I was like, you got me again. You know, so they go from there to have the big CGI fight, and all the heroes get a chance to shine. Ant-Man becomes Giant Man. He's stomping on people. Spider-Man's whipping people around. Valkyrie, etc. Even Pepper Potts in her Iron Man suit, as Iron Potts is what I call her. I don't know if that's what she's called, but that's what I call her. She's in her Iron Man suit, and she's blasting along with Tony back to back. Pretty cool shot there. So everyone gets a chance to shine, but Thanos, of course, he's still after the gauntlet. So now they're playing a game of keep away again from like Infinity War, where they're trying to keep the gauntlet out of Thanos' hands while trying to get it to a backup quantum machine thing that Ant-Man had off in a van somewhere. So of course that fails. Thanos gets his hands back on the gauntlet, the Iron Man gauntlet, and again, just like with the Infinity War, a couple of folks try to fight him, try to take it off of him. And I believe it was Thor that was able to rip one of the stones out of the glove. And backtrack just a little bit, when Doctor Strange came out, Tony had asked him, you saw 14 million, so-and-so outcomes to this. Is this the one that succeeds? And so Doctor Strange's response was, if I tell you, it won't happen. So it's kind of like, well, that's pretty cool. That's kind of like a Cassandra thing from Greek mythology. And so Tony's like, all right, I'm trusting you on this. So then they go about their business and fighting. So when Thanos finally gets his hands on the glove, both Tony and Doctor Strange see that the one gem was taken off. And so it kind of tells them that maybe the stones aren't as strong on Iron Man's glove as they were on Thanos' gauntlet, right? Because in those, it was like impossible to remove them. So they both see that, and Doctor Strange looks at Tony and just raises the finger. He's like, the one chance. And so Tony's like, all right. And it's still at that point, I was like, okay, so he sees that that's his one chance. So Iron Man goes in after Thanos, one last shot, and he's fighting him. And just when you think like, it gets swatted away, of course, Thanos is like, okay, I'm inevitable, like from the beginning of the movie, and he snaps his fingers, nothing happens, and then he looks at the gauntlet, and now all of the gems are gone, and I had a huge, like, just smile on my face when not only did I see that that Tony Stark had the gems on his glove, because it's his technology, so he was able to transfer the, I'm probably thinking they were using the extremist versions of his outfit, of his armor, that real liquid metal type armor. So that way, once he made contact with the gems on his old glove, it just transferred the stones to the new glove without Thanos even knowing it. They didn't have to pull on anything or nothing. He just kind of made contact with the glove. The extremist told this glove, okay, move over here. Thanos swatted them away, and then boom, they're on the hand. So then my big smile on my face was when, Thanos did the snap and he looked at the glove, he was like, what? And then you see Tony there, the glove activated and did this whole thing with the radiation. And that's the thing I didn't explain earlier, is that Hulk had tried it earlier when they put the glove on the first time. Hulk put it on, and they said that it's a lot of gamma radiation, but he's made out of gamma radiation basically, so he would be able to handle it. But when he did it, it injured him, it burned up most of his body. The side of his body that had the glove on, his whole arm, part of his face, was like burned. And so that kind of like set up, okay, well, someone's gonna die from this, because no human body can handle that kind of radiation. If the Hulk can't handle it, like, no human can handle it. So Tony does it, puts it on, radiation all through his body, and he just says, I am Iron Man. And I was like, all right, movie, I'm gonna watch you again and again and again, just to see that movie, just to see that point in the movie. I'm beyond sold. Here's my money, here's my house, here's my car. Okay, I still don't care about most of the other movies, but this movie, for sure. And so, Tony does a snap, and all the bad guys start to fade away, and Thanos is just so, I don't know, I would say depressed, saddened. He didn't look frustrated, he looked more saddened, defeated, depressed. He's just kind of looking around, looking around, all his buddies are just kind of fading to nothing. He's just looking around, it's just, he doesn't say anything. He says nothing. It's so cool because he has no comeback, no more threats. He's like, he just accepts it. He's just like, man, I lost. Like, I lost, and there's nothing I can do about it. It really takes the ending of Infinity War and reverses it all on Thanos's expressions there. He just sits down. He's just done. He's just like shaking his head, and it's just no words whatsoever. It's done so well, you know. And the smile on my face was just like, you know. And like another one of the, so that's how that ended with Thanos getting wiped off the face of the universe, and all his cronies just gone, just like in the snap of a finger. And so Tony, of course, his body can't handle the radiation, so he dies, which was it was a very poignant point for the story, because I think one of the very first things that launched the MCU was Tony Stark saying in that first movie, at the end of that first movie, that I am Iron Man. So I think that was really good artistic, I mean not artistic, yeah, it was pretty good artistic choice to have him say Iron Man, I am Iron Man, as one of the last things he says, because I don't think he mutters anything while he's dying. I think I am Iron Man is the last thing he says while he's alive. So they all mourned for him, and it was a pretty sad part of the movie, you know, something that was really well done, I think, for a Marvel movie. I was like, wow, a main character actually died. That's surprising, you know, and died and is like done, funeral. So I was like, all right, movie, you exceeded my expectations, because honestly, I knew a lot of the characters would come back from Infinity War, just because, you know, Black Panther 2 was already announced, and Spider-Man Far From Home was already announced, so you know those guys weren't gonna stay dead. And then there was a bunch of shows that are gonna premiere on Disney Plus with like Hawkeye and Black Widow, or Black Widow movie, and then Scarlet Witch and Vision. So it's like, you know, those people are gonna come back, so whatever. But to see that Iron Man died in the movie, I was like, all right, Russos did it again. You got me on board, you know. But the movie goes on for a little bit longer, and Hawkeye's reunited with his family, a bunch of other people are reunited, and it goes to Captain America, and he's tasked with bringing the stones back to their original point in time, so that old Avengers can find them, or whoever can find them, and you know, things can play out the way they play out. Which, again, timey-wimey stuff. I'm glad they didn't try to focus too much on that in this movie, because it would make no sense very fast, you know, because just skip that. So Captain America goes back, and Bruce Banner is expecting him to, you know, be gone for 10 seconds and then pull him back in 10 seconds, but he doesn't come back. And that's when you see an old man sitting at the pond, and Bucky and Falcon, you know, they're like, who's that? And it's old Captain America, which was another great callback to the comics, when Captain America lost the super soldier serum, wore out, and he started to age. And that was a pretty cool comic too. So you got old Captain America sitting there, he's like, I don't know why I keep putting Doctor Who references into this thing, but he took the long way around and coming back to the future, and he lived a good life. You know, Tony kept on telling him to get a life, so he finally did that, and he lived. And he lived his life with Peggy Carter. And one of the things that was really cool was that he finally got that dance that he wanted with Peggy. That dance that he was like, you know, I just want that one dance. He finally got it, and much more, obviously, because he lived several decades before going back to that point in time with the rest of the team there. So he passes his shield on to Falcon, which I kind of saw was gonna be the outcome. I know a lot of people were talking about Bucky being the proper successor, because Bucky is the successor, and after Civil War, I believe, he takes over the mantle of Captain America. After Captain America is killed in the comics, Bucky becomes the Winter Soldier becomes Captain America. And so it made sense, but also with Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think I'm saying his name right, Ta-Nehisi Coates, his story about Captain America being Agent Hydra agent this whole time. In that comic, Falcon became Captain America, going against Hydra America? Captain Hydra, I guess. I forget what his name was in the comic book. but Falcon becomes Captain America, and he fights against the former Captain America. So I kind of saw that as the more likely of the two that the movie would go with because of diversity. I don't know. It's not forced in this case because in the comics that actually does happen. So I saw that one as more of a likely scenario than Bucky becoming the new Captain America. So that's kind of a decent ending for that. I mean, you get some new. I mean, you still have all the people who were Tony's friends. They gathered at the funeral, and you can see where shades of where the series would go afterwards. It didn't end. It wasn't like a finality to it. There was still a lot of hope for more movies. There's a bit of a setup for more movies and more hope for the future. And that Captain Marvel was there still. Nick Fury showed up again. Everyone from all these movies, well, not everyone, but most of the main characters from all the movies were at Tony's funeral. And so with that being said, you know, it set up a lot of the Disney Plus shows. Falcon and Bucky and Winter Soldier, I think, is one of them. And the Scarlet Witch and Vision thing is another one of them, like I said earlier. But overall, it was a very, very, very good movie. I'd recommend watching it. Like me explaining everything just like I did, I just wanted to talk about it. But explaining it does not do the movie any justice because you got to see it either in a big screen would be better because there's quite a lot going on. And especially in the fight scenes, there's a lot going on. But to see it in a big screen, small screen, phone screen, I don't see it. Don't watch it on your phone. That just sucks. But see it. You know, it's a very good movie. I definitely recommend you to go see it. I'm gonna go watch it again. Just if someone's offering you a ticket for more than, you know, regular ticket price, I wouldn't go see it then. It's not that important to see. After all, it is just a movie. I know there are some people on eBay who are offering tickets for like $100 or 10 grand, which you'd think it sounds kind of ridiculous, but someone did buy 2 tickets for $15,000 to go watch this thing opening night. And like I said, the movie's good. Is it $15,000 good? Nah. No, not at all. But I hope whoever had it, you know, enjoyed the movie and there wasn't too many people talking, you know, around them. But although they went to it was a drive-in, so maybe they had the privacy of their cars to worry about, but still, 15 grand for one movie, for one day, for one showing of that one movie? I don't think so. But that's all I have. Definitely go see it. I'm gonna watch it again. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. I'm probably gonna review the Pikachu movie next time. That looks pretty interesting. I remember Pokemon. I didn't grow up on it, but I remember it quite well because of it's never left actually. It's been in the human consciousness for several decades now. So that'll probably be my next review. Until then though, you know, have fun at the movies, stay safe, and see you next time. Ciao.